Welcome to the Feminine Principle podcast, supporting women to let go of the ghosts from their past by exploring the hidden side of their female psyche with shamanic shadow work for women, with your host, Nicola Lucy.
Hello ladies, and welcome to this episode of the Feminine Principle podcast, where today we are healing hidden trauma with the help of shadow work. And so let me ask you, what hidden trauma is hiding in your shadow, waiting to be healed and integrated? Trauma is a term used to describe a deeply distressing or disturbing experience, often relating to physical, emotional, psychological, or sexual harm, and left unresolved, it impacts how we lead, love, and relate with ourselves and others. What defines trauma differs from person to person, and what we find extremely disturbing as a child may be deemed as trivial by an adult. Then there is the severe trauma we experience, such as separation, death and divorce, accidents and natural disasters, violence and long-term exposure to difficult and abusive situations, all of which impact our overall well-being. When we experience trauma, the event can be so overwhelming that we struggle to cope with the emotional chaos that gets triggered because we don't have the emotional capacity or understanding and support to be able to deal with it in a healthy and balanced way at the time. Therefore, what we are not able to process and integrate at the point of trauma, emotionally, physically, and psychologically, becomes locked down and hidden in our shadow, creating unconscious behavior and belief patterns that fundamentally protect us from feeling the pain and help us to continue to live and feel an element of safety. The paradox, however, is that we keep manifesting our life and relationships from this trauma-centered place, as what has become hidden is seeking resolution to be heard, acknowledged, and integrated. The emotional effects of hidden trauma are immense. Every time you get triggered, this is the surface level emotional reaction of the unresolved trauma hidden deep in your shadow asking for your attention. But there is a myriad of unconscious patterns put in place to ignore, suppress, and avoid the trigger. Hence the reason you keep repeating the unhealthy cycles of behavior. In addition, each time you try to get close, your nervous system kicks in with a warning saying it's not safe and you need to protect yourself from the potential pain. This is the nervous system simply doing its job. However, it's also where the fear and the resistance step in with a fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Yet it is these deep-seated emotions residing in your shadow, such as grief, sadness and depression, rage and anger, feeling hopeless, lost and confused, envy, jealousy and conflict that are actually helping you to see a way forward. But the emotions are too challenging to face, and so they remain as unconscious reactions. This disconnection from the emotional intelligence impacts how you communicate with yourself and others, giving cause for mental health conditions to arise, manifesting deeper imbalances within the psyche, soul and body, which enable unhealthy, fractured and toxic relationships to continue. Then there are the physical effects of hidden trauma. The more unresolved trauma you have hidden in your shadow, the more it then manifests in the body, presenting itself as physical symptoms through illness, disorders and diseases, creating short-term and long-term health challenges. This is fundamentally the body communicating to you what is out of balance and therefore needs your attention to heal. However, in Western medicine practices, the whole of the person is not taken into account and relies heavily on a prescribe and suppress methodology, healing the symptoms but not the root, resulting in prolonged, chronic and repetitive symptomatic cycles. And then there are the social effects of hidden trauma. This physical, psychological and emotional impact of trauma entwine together and create a sense of your identity, personality and character, changing the tapestry of your social behavior and the way in which you relate and interact with others. There can be difficulty forming and maintaining healthy and supportive relationships due to internal conflict with love and trust, communication and commitment, and emotional and sexual intimacy, which make us avoid certain situations or people, leading to social isolation and challenges with social cues and norms. Trauma also has a ripple effect impacting families and communities, leading to relationship conflict, stress and strain, and it regularly shows up in the workplace when not addressed, affecting performance, concentration and focus, impacting your ability to lead and manage effectively. Finally, there is the social stigma surrounding trauma and mental health, making it difficult to seek support, leading to further isolation and shame. And then there are the generational effects of hidden trauma. We all carry the dark and the light of our spiritual and bloodline ancestors. Trauma they experienced individually and collectively is carried deep in your psyche and cellular memory. What is left unresolved will naturally find its way into your own life and the way in which you relate with yourself and others. Passed down through the generations, there is the potential to recreate and repeat their unconscious patterns, effective in your own beliefs and behaviours, albeit within a modern tableau. And when left unaddressed, these cause more havoc, especially in the development of seeking your own unique identity and nature, and in your quest for love, safety, security and stability, and emotional connection and intimacy. It is often the case where you may seek the attention and love or the trauma projected onto you as a child by one or both of your parents in your intimate relationships. You may be attracted to toxic and unhealthy relationships because this is the unresolved trauma passed down through the generations and the unconscious belief this is all you deserve. Then there are the emotions passed down from parent to child or through the family line, often stemming right back through the maternal or patriarchal line, seeking expression and integration. And the list goes on. My own journey healing hidden trauma goes back to 2007, when I developed PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, a severe form of PMT that affects you on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally and sexually. I felt like I was losing my mind. The depression was deep, the physical pain of my periods intensified, my breasts were constantly swollen and painful, and the headaches never ending. Then there were the suicidal thoughts. I wanted it all to be over. I felt like dying was better than living, and I was in a complete and utter mess. Emotionally unhinged, constantly borderline hysterical, swinging between sanity and insanity at the drop of a hat. But what I was experiencing was real, and it was downright scary. As I began healing myself naturally, I recognized PMDD was the result of trauma leading right back to my sense of abandonment I experienced as a child, and a thread leading back through the generations of my own family, a pattern of young mothers leaving their children to be cared for by their own mothers. The more I healed, the more I recognized the belief system I had created around motherhood and how it impacted every intimate relationship I had with myself and with others. The unresolved pain of it came out in how I reacted emotionally and the physical and hormonal symptoms my body experienced and the unconscious decisions I made that perpetuated the unhealthy patterns of behavior. And so what is the role of shadow work in healing hidden trauma? As we can see, trauma, when left unresolved, festers on so many levels and impacts every aspect of your life and relationships, personal and professional. But when faced, you can consciously choose whether it makes you bitter or better, disempowered or empowered. The roots of trauma are a complex system of patterns and emotions, beliefs and behaviors that determine your relationship with love and trust, pain and pleasure, safety, security and stability, and health and wellness, with each thread having an impact on the other. Therefore, when working with trauma in shadow work, we begin by de-armoring the nervous system, experiencing what feels safe and right for you to explore in any given moment, so you can learn to break through your own limitations and go beyond the surface level emotional triggers. With time and patience and practice and gentleness, you follow the threads into your deep and hidden psyche, going back to the root of the trauma, giving yourself permission to witness yourself like never before. No longer taking flight from the pain and suffering, but embracing it as your friend, your teacher, your healer, and your ally. And locked beneath it all is so much wisdom, intelligence, and power and potential that you can then use to build strong and supportive relationships and build the life you always thought possible, but was always just beyond your reach. Right now, there is so much unresolved trauma in the world today, on an individual and a collective level, and this impacts the legacy being left to the children following in our wake. Therefore, it is my belief that we have a duty and a responsibility to ourselves to live a life of love, compassion, and understanding, and have the power to bring this vibration into all that we do and every relationship that we have, so we can change a new blueprint for the future generations. As the Serenity Prayer states, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There is such power in these words, and when we give ourselves permission to hold them, it can begin to rewrite the tapestry within the self. Therefore, what will you choose moving forward? Here are some questions to help you on your shadow work journey and working with hidden trauma. What trauma have you experienced in your life that still haunts you? When you give yourself permission to think about this trauma, how does it make you feel? How does this trauma make you want to react? And where do you feel this trauma on your body? And lastly, what is stopping you from healing this trauma now or in the future? And so, ladies, that's all for today. But if you have enjoyed this episode of the Feminine Principle podcast, then I invite you to join the Notes from Your Shadow newsletter, where every Saturday I will pop into your inbox with more wisdom, insight, and inspiration to help you fall in love with your shadow self. Until next time, with love.
Are you ready to break free from the ghosts of your past, to live with more freedom and a clear sense of purpose and inner confidence? If so, book a chat with me to explore the potent magic of one-to-one shadow walking sessions at thefeminineprinciple.com.